When we say mental health, we are not talking about the people on the street. Each and every one of us has mental health.
You know, when you're light in complexion, wherever you go, and when you have a nice body, wherever you go, you are rejected. People label you those funny names. So, you know, all of that was coming up. And at the end of the day, you're dating the wrong people for the wrong reasons, and you get heartbroken. So it was like a whole pile of garbage on top of another. I was so depressed.
So suicide, right, seems like the best option, because what I've learned being in that dark place, it's unbearable to be there. It honestly is. And one feels hopeless, one feels worthless, one feels like there's absolutely nothing to look forward to in life. Therefore, you know, suicide is the end. It will end all of this. You understand?
Nobody is talking about how men feel, not even men themselves. If you look at the statistics, actually, more men commit suicide than women.
In our part of the world, you find out if people are thinking about what to eat, who is going to take money to visit their psychologist? So it looks like the pastors and the prophets become the easy call.
You know, like from where I come from, you need to be married at a certain age. And when you pass that certain age, people think like there's something wrong with you spiritually or mentally.
So stress is going to come, but how you cope with the stress determines whether you have good mental health or not.
I'll just say this for men. It's okay to know when you're at your breaking point. You don't have to be permanently strong. It's okay to say, I'm not strong. I cannot share my strength with you. My strength is not enough to share around. So no, thank you. It's okay to say no. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to go away. It's okay to shut down and take care of yourself. It's okay.
I'm normally someone who's energetic, you see, ne? This was gone. I was just always in bed. I didn't have the energy to do anything. It was even a drag to get up just to make myself a sandwich.
A lot of us are just quick to judge, quick to dismiss. Even when you're just talking to your friend and you notice something that's off about them, bring it up. Maybe they need that opportunity. Maybe they need someone to talk to.
So if there's a change in the way a person thinks, the way they feel, and then the way they behave, then we can say they have a mental illness.
But most of all, I found peace in the word of God. I found rest in God and his word and his promises. I learned about putting myself first, and then other people come second. I learned to believe in myself. I learned to wake up no matter how hard it is. I make sure I put my makeup on. Even if I don't have anywhere to go, I wake up, I bath, I take a long bath. I remind myself that, girl, you're going far. I tell myself that at least you're no longer where you were before. You are going to be great. I look at myself in the mirror. I talk to myself and say, let me remind you one thing. You are a great person. Let me remind you one thing. You are going to drive whatever car you want. Whatever that is happening around you does not define you.
Get help for your mental issues. Be the help for another person's mental issues.
Nobody wants to die. But when the pain becomes unbearable, when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you just want to pull the plug.
But I think we have a good number and we can zoom into the conversation. On behalf of Annie, our moderator, and our convener, I would like to welcome everyone here. I am Joseph Quarcoo. You can call me Dijo Quarcoo. I'm a musician, And I sing about youth. I sing about sustainable cities or just cities, inclusive cities. And I sing about faith as well. I'm a Reverend Minister. I'm the founding chair for Voice One Africa, and I'm excited that, we've come this far. This team that's holding this event used to be the period team. We used to have conversations on menstruation. Those episodes were, that entire series on menstruation opened me up to a lot of stuff. I learned a lot from these wonderful ladies here and the guys as well, including Adetola. I'm sure Adetola will be joining us sometime. So those conversations on menstruation were really insightful. And I'm glad that we've been able to transition from menstruation to mental health. These subjects are considered taboo topics, and more or less, we don't have the leverage to discuss these issues openly. But through our menstrual discussions, we were able to, as it were, normalize the period talk and to make it a normal conversation, so to speak, to talk about it. So I'm hoping that through these series, these discussions on mental health, we'll be able to open up the conversation on mental health in Africa, and regardless of whichever shape or form it takes, and how we deal with it in our respective spaces, sociocultural environments, and our country perspective. So it's as usual in Voice One Africa, we keep our discussions semi-formal. So the panelists will have opportunity to present, to make their submissions. And after a while, the floor will be opened. Whilst the panelists are presenting their submissions or discussing the issues, participants can join the conversation in the chat function. And after a while, the platform will be open. So you'll be asked to unmute and contribute to the conversation. And I think this is what makes our discussions unique and inclusive. That's how we want to position ourselves, and that's how we do our stuff. You're all welcome, and I'm wishing all of us a wonderful session. So let's begin the conversation. This is the first episode of the series, and I would have each and everyone introduce themselves fully, give your full profile. We want to know who you are and where you are based and stuff like that. So for the panelists, this is it. What you do and what you're passionate about. Just give us your profile so that we'll get to know who you are and appreciate you and your input. All right, so I'll start from Genevieve, with Genevieve, Esther, and then when Annie joins, she'll do that as well. So Jen, over to you.
Oh, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Genevieve. For some reason, I'm so nervous. I'm Genevieve. I'm from South Africa. Okay, I'm a final year law student at the University of South Africa. So how I would like to describe myself is I am a spoken word writer and performer. I am a lover of people. I am passionate about the development in terms of education, economic of Black people. I am an activist of the environment and of human rights. And what else?
You're a businesswoman.
Yes, I'm an what's the word? Entrepreneur. Yes, I am a hustler. That's what it's called nowadays, right? You hustle. So yes, I'm a hustler, and I just don't know how to describe myself right now because I'm just so nervous. But those are some of the things that really stand out for me. I believe in the truth. Okay. And like I said, I'm very passionate about, the development or the evolvement of Black people. We need to redefine ourselves. Earlier there was a conversation on, we are Black, but also that's questionable because who said we are Black? You understand? But I'm not going to go into that right now. That's all I'm going to say. I'm really excited to be here, to be part of the panel. And I'm here to learn as well and share whatever knowledge that I have. And I don't want to make this longer than it should. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jen. Yeah, it's great to have you. And yes, I've met you, so I can attest. And of course, through our first series on period or menstrual conversations, I know you have a lot to share. Thank you so much. Esther, yes, it's great to have you, Esther. Can you also introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Esther Agbozo. I'm a Ghanaian, but I'm currently in Germany for a short while. I'll be back in August. So I'm a final year medical student in the University of Ghana. I'm the founder of Mental Health Affairs. So Mental Health Affairs is an NGO that was set up to increase awareness creation of mental health issues and also to reduce the stigma and the discrimination that exists against the people living with mental illnesses. So in January this year, I also founded EAS Foundation for African Leaders. Maybe you can see from my shirt. Yeah, so EAS Foundation for African Leaders is also an NGO, which was started with the purpose of grooming young people and equipping them with skills in the fields of leadership, entrepreneurship, career guidance, and then health. And with the health, my focus is mainly on mental health because a lot of people tend to neglect mental health issues. And I have come to appreciate how much mental health is actually causing us harm, and we are not appreciating it. Not just in Africa, but then, it's actually a worldwide problem. Yes, so currently, like I said, I'm in Germany. I'm actually taking part in the mental health training program for 2 months. There's an NGO here that organized this program for us, and I'm really learning a lot. And then, fortunately, your founder found my story on, Nonprofit Africa, their website, and then he reached out to me and he told me that you guys are going to discuss mental health. And I told him, for me, anything mental health, I mean, you can ask my sister. Once it is mental health, I mean, I can cancel all appointments, just come and talk about mental health because I am so passionate about mental health. So, yes, I'm actually very excited to be here. And I hope that at the end of the session, we all learn something about mental health and then we'll all become, people who can make a change in our circles of influence when it comes to mental health. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Esther. Indeed, I mean, it's great to have you. I myself, I'm a social psychologist. I'm an applied social psychologist. I think through his application psychology issues, to youth issues and how we interact in the city and how we interact with each other and stuff like that. So I also feel that I have something to share on the subject. So let's start. Genevieve, please grace us with your wonderful poem on the subject, and then we'll dive into the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Joe. So I have 2 poems, right? I will start with this one. It's titled Dead Walking. I miss what pain feels like. My mind has become like a still whirlwind with thunderstorms. My heart a cold lava rock that used to burn with fire. A nomad, no longer in motion, dragged down by the suitcase of expectations that I carry. For one to be strong, I can only imagine how crying feels like waterfalls, running down a mountain during a Cape Town summer day. Water droplets falling onto hot rocks and disappearing into thin steam as my impenetrable cheeks evaporate teardrops at their baptism. I have the urge to cry, but my reservoirs have run dry from the cold, still whirlwinds of my rock-hard heart hammered into my chest. I'm dead walking. Fear has dried up my insides. My stomach has swallowed my intestines and exploded into nothingness. I can only taste its leftovers from the brittle words mistakenly slipping out of my mouth. And no, I am not depressed. I'm dead walking, just not a ghost yet. I imagine a heart of flesh to be like a seasonal dam, present in rainy seasons, which would be occasional moments of confusing, overwhelming emotions. Some call it treading on thin ice, except I am the thin ice threaded on. Fragile as glass, but dangerous when broken. My brokenness causes chaos, and no, this is not me breaking down, because that would be weak, and weak is not in me. Psychologically, I'm anorexic from emotional starvation. I have deprived myself too long from the pleasure of being human with roller coaster emotions. I'm dead walking, hoping to resurrect someday to experience what pain feels like. All right, so that is my first piece.
Wow.
I don't I don't think it's the time or place to unpack it. But I'll just move on to the second one. Please give me a moment as I just scroll down to find it. I'm almost there. All right. So the next piece, this one is recently written in this year, in fact. And, I was at my lowest at this time when I wrote it. I'm not going to give further explanations. I'm just going to read it. Life demands to be lived, but I lack the will to live through its torments, unkindness, anger, fleeting moments of beauty and false promises of a better tomorrow. I have lived over 10 million tomorrows, some memorable, some excruciating, but no amount of morals could convince me to choose another. This life has stolen life from me. I am but a shell, a speck of dust drifting, a ghost of who I'm supposed to be, a shadow of a life hoped for. Death is beautiful. We have made acquaintance. I have felt her warm caress one too many times. Her scent is familiar. Gazed into her prying black eyes, her charming walk, her embrace, her stealthiness. I want to go with her whenever she visits. She knows my heart longs for her. I have often called on her for rescue, but courage leaves me like urine runs down one's legs whenever she makes her way to me. I have seen the disappointment on her face whenever I have promised to go with her. The cowardice in my words have been like a dagger to her heart. As a lover promises the moon and the stars to his beloved, so have I promised her that someday I will be brave, that my cowardice will be as urine down my legs, that I will accept her graceful offer to rest my mind and my body from turmoil, that her and I will someday soon finally be united. That's it. Thank you so much.
These two poems are just too loaded. I think it's a good premise, or it set the tone for this discussion. I recall in the mental health WhatsApp group when we were planning this, some people shared experiences of how, even in this year, there's been suicide. A lady was sharing this, somebody has just committed suicide in her locality or something. So it's closer to us, this whole experiences of mental health and the stresses that we face. Thank you so much, Genevieve, for sharing. We'd like to open the conversation. What are your thoughts, opening thoughts? Esther, what are your opening thoughts on the subject?
Okay, so like you said, I think that these two poems actually set the tone for the discussion today. My opening thoughts, I would say, are, when we talk about mental health, people tend to have a very construed mindset when we mention mental health. Most of the times when you say mental health, everybody thinks about, in quotes, the mad people on the street. It is very, very important to let everybody understand that when we say mental health, we are not talking about the people on the street. Each and every one of us has mental health. So now when we look at WHO's definition for mental health, they tell us that it is a state of well-being where an individual realizes his or her own abilities. The person can cope with the normal stresses of life. The person can work productively and fruitfully, and then they can make a contribution to their society. So it means that each and every one of us has mental health. So first, we should be able to recognize our abilities. Then we should be able to cope with the normal stresses of life, because whether we like it or not, the stresses are going to come. And recently, one of the doctors facilitating the programs here mentioned that stress is actually not a bad thing as we see it, because stress is what actually pushes us to get things done. So stress is going to come, but how you cope with the stress determines whether you have good mental health or not. And then again, if you're able to work productively and fruitfully, because some people would be working and yet they are not productive. So there's something in mental health and psychiatry that we call presenteeism. So the person is there, they are supposed to be working, but they are not productive, they are not doing anything meaningful. So compared to someone who will be absent, they will say absenteeism. This person is present and yet they are not productive. So we call it presenteeism. And then again, the person to be able to make a contribution to their society. So wherever you find yourself, whatever space you find yourself, you should be able to do something. That is when we can say you have good mental health. Now, when we say mental illness, which is a different term, that is when we mean that somebody has an issue that is usually affecting their brain. So most mental illnesses are problems that affect the brain. So if there's a change in the way a person thinks, the way they feel, and then the way they behave, then we can say they have a mental illness. We need to understand that these three are actually very connected, because the way you think affects the way you feel, and then the way you feel will affect the way you behave. A very classic example I like using during my presentations is, for instance, if I give you a glass cup with water up to like the half mark, and I ask you, is this glass half full or half empty? Some people would say it is half full. Other people would say it is half empty. Now, the person who says it is half full is appreciating that at least I have some water in this glass. So the person is going to be, that is their thought. So the person is going to feel happy because they have something. Now, the other person who's saying that it is half empty believes that maybe my glass should be full. I don't understand why my glass is half up to the half mark, right? So that person is going to be either sad or angry because they don't have everything that they want. Now, these two people's feelings will influence how they behave. The happy person is probably going to live a normal life, appreciate what they have, associate with people just the way they should. But then the other person who thinks it is half empty is going to look for ways and means to fill that cup up to their full mark. So if they probably have to steal from somebody, or they have to lie to somebody to get more out of their cup, that's what they're going to do. So if there's any distortion in how a person is thinking, how they are feeling, or how they are behaving, then we would say that the person has a mental illness, which is a total different concept from what we have when we say mental health.
Thank
and
you
then
so
again,
much. Okay.
I'm giving you too much information here.
No. This is great. I think
don't mind me.
You're taking us into the thing. I mean, it's amazing. So you just spoke about the thinking, the feeling, and the behavioral component. These three, which are connected. Even though sometimes we only look at the behavioral component to see whether somebody is experiencing a mental condition or otherwise. So
it starts
like
from the thinking.
From the thinking. Awesome. Thank you. Let's go to Genevieve. We're going to come back to you.
Okay, sure.
Yes, thank you so much.
If you leave me there, I will talk, sir.
Thanks, Esther. Jen.
That was really a lot said there. I think for me, I've always heard about the term mental health. I think it's probably been like 3 years now that I've been hearing about this. And it was only in this year when I was facing my own things or mental illness, whatever you want to call it, that I actually sat down and read, a bit about it to understand what it is and kind of get a self-help way out of where I was, because what I'd also learned is that it's something that's talked about, but it wasn't easy for me to understand. And also I think there was no information, shared in these places that I could hang on to and feel like, okay, so this is what it is. But I got to understand basically that what mental health is, or, what the role it plays is it affects your, your cognitive abilities and behavior. So like Esther said that, it has to do with your emotions, behavior, and all those things, and how you are able to not only contribute successfully where you are, but how you can, how you are able to contribute to yourself first, because you cannot give out what you do not have. You understand? And I've also got to understand that mental illness has, outcomes such as, depression with which ultimately, leads to suicide. Those are just symptoms of it. And it's so easy to just, think, okay, it's depression. How do I get out of it, without having to look at, how did it get there? because it didn't just, fly out of someone. It's there, like certain things triggered you to get to where you are right now, where you find yourself. So without rambling on and on, that's what I understand. And I think what's also challenging is, when this mental illness or health is talked about, like Esther said, people have in mind an insane person, but just the same way as you would have a cramp or a pain somewhere in your body, I understand, mental illness to be, a pain or a sickness in how you think, in how you feel. Do you understand? That's what it is. And that's how I understand it. Yeah, this will also, I believe, if we understand it like that, it will also help with, the current stigmas that are there, that, you are a crazy person if you are struggling with or have mental illness.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
These are great submissions. You mentioned the issue about triggers, and I think that's a word that's very important for this discussion. This opening, triggers. You also mentioned the word depression, which is leading us into maybe some of the types of mental illnesses. But before I go into all of these, I see that Annie has joined us, Annabelle, and I'll have her relax for just some few minutes, and then I'll call her to join. So I would like to say that like both of the panelists have submitted, there's a very thin line between normalcy and abnormalcy. It's very thin, and we all of us here on this platform cross temporarily to abnormality or to, as in brackets, insaneness at one point or another, but we are able to cross back into the normalcy line again. It becomes a mental illness if we stay too long in the abnormality segment. So for example, when people become angry, that's a temporary hold on what could be termed normalcy. Sometimes you find out someone gets angry, the person destroys every valuable thing in their home. It crashes the TV. Even let's talk about the way we relate to each other when we are angry. You say nasty words to each other, destroying relationships that have been built over years. And that's a demonstration of abnormality. So we all transition between normalcy and abnormality. So for us to say or categorize someone as being or having mental illness or having stayed in that state of abnormality, that means the person has stayed longer in a longer period. And so this also helps us to deal with the issue of stigma, because if everybody experiences mental illness in one way or the other, then there's no need to stigmatize somebody for having or experiencing mental illness. So I just wanted to put that across. And I think when Esther was speaking, she also mentioned the issue about arousal, or actually stresses, and Genevieve mentioned triggers. And so having noted that the whole cycle of mental health, when we talk about mental health in general, it starts from cognition or our thinking, and then it transitions to our feeling or emotions, and then that leads to the action or behavior. Having spoken about all this, we need to find out that there is a trigger, or there is something that arouses us. Just like the way if someone pinches you, you feel that trigger, you feel something on your skin. But what the trigger leads to all these chain of commands that eventually let you feel it in your brain, and then you react either by shouting or taking your hand off the place where the trigger is coming from or something. So in looking at mental health, we have to actually try to figure out what are the triggers. And this brings in the dynamic of individuality, because what may trigger my state of imbalance may be different from what will trigger your state of imbalance. So these are some of the things we must pay attention to, being self-aware to know what may trigger imbalances or trigger, as it were, stresses in our lives that may erupt into some of these conditions. So having said that, I don't know if Annie is ready, and then she could share some thoughts. Otherwise, I would open the floor and hear from us. And the question I would like to put on the floor is, I mean, Genevieve has indicated that at the point where she even wrote that the second poem she read, she was experiencing a down moment, and she gave it the term depression. Have we in this room experienced any form of mental illness or mental stresses in one way or the other? If any of us would like to open up and share how it felt like and what the experience was like for us dealing with the people around us, and whether we're able to have any support, and what do we do to kind of restore the balance. I recall there was one instance. I mean, being in Cape Town, I was in Cape Town for 2 years, from beginning of 2020 to end of 2021. And I mean, I came to Ghana back and forth. And I told myself I was so fortunate to have been able to get to Ghana just before the lockdowns happened. And the reason I say that was when I got back to Cape Town, when the COVID situation was a bit okay, I saw that had I not had the opportunity to come back to Ghana and experience that 6 months lockdown in South Africa, I don't know what would have happened to me. I don't know, psychologically, I don't know what would have happened to me, because the few times there were these other levels, lockdown levels in Cape Town, I found myself experiencing some psychological tensions or pressures. And sometimes I broke down. I spent a lot of time maybe going to the park, but the parks were now closed. I mean, the open spaces, the parks, but the parks were now closed. They were not open. And I lived in a block apartment, like 6 floors, actually 7th floor, and I was on the 6th floor. And these are all doors that are, so there's not much room for interaction and all that. So to stay there for 6 months without very lot of interaction and getting out to meet people and stuff would have been quite devastating for me. And for me, I guess that was why I always kept telling Genevieve, Petro, on the circle of friends I had in Cape Town that, I mean, you guys made my stay in South Africa really rewarding. And I mean, helped me to deal with a lot of issues, yes. And so that's just what I can share from my perspective. Yeah, thank you. That's why I started. Anyone else would like to go?
Thank you, Dejo. It's kind of sweet knowing that as much as I was also in my own, whatever you want to call it, that in my state of blah, someone also enjoyed my company, or basically I meant something to someone. That's nice to know.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, so I spoke about triggers, right? So excuse me if it happens that I'm long, but I'll try my best to be as short as I can to just explain what triggered the state I was in. So it happened during the time of COVID. So there was lockdown in March 2020, and in August 2020, I was retrenched. So I lost my employment, which meant, and I was staying by myself. I was renting a flat, and basically all the things that made me feel independent, I feel like were taken away, right? So now I lost my job. I can no longer stay by myself where I used to stay. It meant that I could not pay my school fees. I had to move back home, you understand? And a lot of people were losing their jobs because the economy was just going, all the way down. There was no hope of getting a job, looking for a job became a full-time job. And no opportunities, presenting themselves or being called for interviews. So, money ran out, and, relationships, family relationships also, kind of got, dented. And because I'm a person who's independent or who likes to do things for myself, it felt like I was being a burden to my family. Do you understand? So the inability to take care of myself financially at that time, and being dependent on my family who's also not earning much. So those were the triggers that led me into the dark place, or led me into abnormalcy, right? And then I'd also noticed that, you know, I would commit myself to events or to see friends, and then the last minute I would not go. I did not want to be around people because I felt that I'll be expected to be me, but I cannot be that person. I cannot give the people that know that Genevieve, I can't give them that Genevieve because she's not there, right? So that is how I felt. And some of the experiences that I've had, I'm normally someone who's energetic, you see, this was gone. I was just always in bed. I didn't have the energy to do anything. It was even a drag to get up just to make myself a sandwich. When I go into the last poem, right? Okay. So suicide, right, seems like the best option, because what I've learned being in that dark place, it's unbearable to be there. It honestly is. And one feels hopeless, one feels worthless, one feels like there's absolutely nothing to look forward to in life. Therefore, you know, suicide is the end. It will end all of this. You understand? So when I wrote this last piece, I was in depression for the second time now. So, you know, after all the first things happened, I got tired of being in that place, right? Of, you know, feeling what I'm feeling, my body, you know, being a drag. So I decided, okay, let me go and exercise, work out, be amongst people, especially people that I don't know. That's how I felt. And it helped. Working out helped me, right? And I was able to think clearly again. So I started doing small things to have, or to be able to make a little bit of, you know, money, so that I'm able to take care of myself and also help where I can at home. And then what got me into the second episode of depression was I felt like my efforts, all those efforts, became futile or did not bring out the desired result, right? And so that took me into the second episode where I felt like, nothing is working. I have tried. What is the point? Do you understand? So that's where the last poem came from, where I felt like, look, I have tried everything. Nothing seems to work out, and I don't want to try anymore. I'm done. You understand? And so, but also in that state, I didn't want to get to a point where I make a final decision where I'm like, yeah, no, I'm taking my life. Do you understand? There was also, I don't know if I would say, like, you know, positivity somewhere, but maybe we can call it that. But there was just, you know, a little bit. And I think also what helped in that state was I had shared what I was going through or what I went through with people close to me, so that they are aware. And there were people that reached out. So I couldn't really get to the final stage where I was like, yeah, no, I'm done. No more. Genevieve, you understand? But at the same time, I felt that, look, if I go further down than where I am right now, there is no comeback. That I knew, that I had decided that if I go deep into depression again, I'm not going to get out of it. I'll make sure that I don't, right? And as those things were happening, there were also, people that I know that committed suicide, and people were asking why. And I feel like I had an opportunity to explain to those people that actually, people say suicide is selfish. It's not. Where it's coming from is you feel so hopeless that, suicide for you is your way of freeing yourself out of that darkness or out of that dark place. You feel like you have nothing more to give. You have nothing to look forward to. So basically, suicide is saying, yeah, right. Okay, there's 5 minutes to 8. Load shedding. So that has been my experience. And I realized that, or I learned that before I get to that place, right? Because I tend to overthink as well, or my mind is also busy. So I would have shoulder aches and all those things. So when I felt these triggers that I've identified that, okay, these are signs of stress and stress will lead me here, I decided, okay, work out, Genevieve, be active with your body. So that has been keeping me sane or normal, if that is the word to use.
Thank you
so
so
yeah.
much, Genevieve. I think there's a really, it's personal what you're sharing, and we appreciate sharing these experiences. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, you've spoken about what the triggers were, how you even try to manage it, the experience of it, and how you try to manage it. And you even spoke about you speaking about how you are feeling with your network, those who are close by, letting them know your current state at that time. You also spoke about exercising or workout and doing small things. I recall you told me about starting your small business and all of that. And I feel that these are really personal issues that you've shared, and we really appreciate this sharing this with us. Thank you so much. And I know there's going to be load shedding at your side, and we are probably going to lose you in some few minutes, but we appreciate what you've shared with us so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Annie is here. Before Annie comes in, I'll have Pearl. She has her hands raised up. Yeah, Pearl.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Pearl, so you kindly introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from, and then you can go.
My name is Pearl. My middle name is Danai, and my surname is Chinomona. I'm Shona, and I'm a proud Zimbabwean. I'm currently staying in Johannesburg, and I'm pleased to meet you guys and to share with you my experiences. And thank you so much for hosting this meeting. It is indeed really helpful, because it's the things that we are facing each and every day, and we don't have anybody to open up to, considering the fact that we have, we have African parents who are always busy, and you can't share some of the things to them because they regard it taboo. So at the end of the day, we bottle things up and we end up doing things like drugs. Ladies end up prostituting so that they can fill certain gaps. So I'm just, while you were sharing, I was just writing down some of the things that led me into depression. Actually, I'm 30 years old and I'm not married. So before, it was like a concern, like from where I come from, you need to be married at a certain age. And when you pass that certain age, people think like there's something wrong with you spiritually or mentally. So, all of that started depressing me. I thought maybe there was something wrong with me because, with the social media that's giving people of our age pressure. You see pictures of your friends getting married every day. You log into Facebook, you see your classmates are married, they're doing well. So I got to a situation whereby I reached the age of 25. I was not married. I was not working. I was still dependent. Even though my mom could afford to give me money, still it's not like enough, because you can't tell your mom to like give you money even for personal things. As a lady, there's like personal things that you really need. So you can't be asking all the time. So it led into depression because I was unemployed. I would spend the day sleeping, and at night I couldn't sleep. So I had that insomnia whereby during the day, that's when I could sleep. But at night, I couldn't sleep. I'll be awake. I'll be crying. I'll be thinking, what's really going to happen? So, I got to a point whereby I felt like I'm not living up to my full potential. Why? Because I was comparing myself to other people. And then also the other thing is I'm the firstborn in my family, and I have a little brother. I'm like a deputy parent. And that little brother is autistic. I have to take care of him. So I was asking myself, like, is this my responsibility? Like, seriously, I have to take care of an autistic child. Already, I'm a mother on my age. I have to mother my own mother, number one. Two, I have to mother my little brother who's autistic. At times, he gets those tantrums. He can be violent. He's hard to cope with. So, all of that was leading me to like a trance whereby I felt life is not worth living. Wherever I would go, I felt like I'm being rejected. And, at times we want to spiritualize everything and think maybe I've got demons or something, because I'll try to visit even my cousin sisters. They'll treat me like trash. They'll say, this one we don't trust yet. Maybe because you're light in complexion. When you're light in complexion, wherever you go, and when you have a nice body, wherever you go, you are rejected. People label you those funny names. So, all of that was coming up. And at the end of the day, you're dating the wrong people for the wrong reasons, and you get heartbroken. So it was like a whole pile of garbage on top of another. I was so depressed. I felt like, this life is not worth living. But let me share with you, this is how I conquered. One day I woke up, I sat on my computer because as I speak right now, I have a degree. Although I haven't used it, I have an honors in media. But all of this was happening to me despite the fact that I'm educated. And there is another thing that we did as a family. My family had to send me to church for a one-on-one with the prophet because they said, no, this is spiritual, Like I told you, our African parents would do anything for you to get married. But one day, all those things didn't work out. Going to church, being laid hands on, it didn't work until I sat down with myself. I wrote myself an email apologizing to myself. And this is what I told myself in that email. I said, you know what, girl? It's like I took the other me and sat here there, and I said, you know what? I've lost you along the way. I've rejected you. I've like considered you one of the like a last option in life, because I would like hustle around, sell things. I would cook those, we call them magwinya here in South Africa. I would cook them, I would sell things, and then send money home to my mother, something like that. But the person who was taking care of me is my mother's sister. She's my aunt. She's in the UK. But my biological mom was struggling. So my aunt could only take care of me, but she couldn't take care of my mom and my siblings. So, like I wrote myself a letter, like an email one day. I apologized to myself. I said, you know what, girl? I've disappointed you so many times. I've mistreated you. I haven't been bathing you. I've rejected you. I've considered you last. I'm not saying it's bad to take care of our families, but I'm saying at least consider yourself first. I used to consider people first, like even in a relationship, I would take the guy first and forget about myself and forget about my happiness. I would make sure the other person is happy, and then it's at the cost of my happiness. But I came to realize that I come first, because at the end of the day, I have been with me every night. I've gone to bed with me every night. I've cried with me every night. So I had to apologize to myself and start taking care of me. And I started to realize the potential that I have. So after I apologized to myself, and up to now, I still read that email every day. I told myself that, girl, you're going to be taking care of you first and then your family second. You're going to be listening to you first and then other people's voices second. I started, like to read books. I started to learn about the law of attraction because, when you're depressed, you start filling your mind with negative things. I told myself, no way. My circumstances are not going to define me. As long as I wake up, I need to force myself to dress up and show up. I need to go out there and explore the world. I started reading. I would go on the internet. I would search for things like cars, nice houses. I would imagine myself living like in that house. But that time, like I was living in a shack. So, that alone, that practicing the law of attraction, it helped me to realize myself. And then, I'll just dress up. I'll show up. And then when I went to church now, I started embracing the young ladies because I felt that they are walking in the path that I've walked. And if I don't embrace them, if I don't show them the love that I needed, we will not be able to break that cycle. So I would offer counseling. And I made sure that even the little things like my status, it's to inspire somebody who's going through something. So that at least if anyone who sees it, I don't know, I might be saving a life. So I started counseling, and up to now, I've got a number of girls that are around me. If they need anything, we meet, we do our Google meetings, we encourage each other that, what, this is not the end of life. There is light at the end of the tunnel. So I discovered that it's a waste of time just sending my CV and there's no response. While I'm waiting for a response, I'm going to start like selling things. I started selling like from the small things like perfumes, those perfumes whereby you order perfumes for 20 Rand. And then I started selling them for 100, meaning that I was no longer dependent on the money from my aunt. I now had my own money. And up to now, I can afford to live like in my own apartment. Even if she doesn't send money, I don't mind. And right now I'm planning to go to Dubai probably next week. I'm just waiting for the cheaper flights to go and buy machinery to print, because at our church we have many functions and people print t-shirts while we celebrate birthdays, anniversaries for the church. So, with all that, it has helped me. I learned about the law of attraction. I learned about putting myself first and then other people come second. I learned to believe in myself. I learned to wake up no matter how hard it is. I make sure I put my makeup on. Even if I don't have anywhere to go, I wake up, I bath, I take a long bath. I remind myself that, girl, you're going far. I tell myself that at least you're no longer where you were before. You are going to be great. I look at myself in the mirror. I talk to myself and say, let me remind you one thing. You are a great person. Let me remind you one thing. You are going to drive whatever car you want. Whatever that is happening around you does not define you. So all of that, I had to find peace with myself. I had like to forgive myself for treating myself that way and not believing in myself. But most of all, I found peace in the word of God. I found rest in God and his word and his promises. Thank you.
Wow, Pearl, this really moving. I mean, what you've shared is really deep. And you've taken us to like how all of this happened, the stresses. And I like what you said about when you took responsibility. I'm a Reverend minister, and as a Reverend minister, you find that parents and siblings and people come to us. We pray for people, right? But the truth is, like you're saying, the Holy Spirit will help you. The Holy Spirit will grant you the strength to be able to do the thing that you have to do. So I'm glad that you were able to share all of what you've been able to share. And the fact that you were saying you wrote a letter to yourself, like it's more like there was a form of an awakening where you took responsibility for yourself and not being dependent. I don't want to use the word dependent, but sometimes we find ourselves in a state where we blame others for our state, and sometimes we feel helpless about what we are experiencing, and because we are projecting it on others. But when we come to the point of taking our responsibility for ourselves, sometimes also one of the ways that we can kind of lift ourselves out of the situation. And I thank you so much for sharing. That's really good stuff. Thank you. Annie.
Hello, everyone. Can you get me?
Yeah, Annie, we can.
Okay. My name is Annie. Yeah, and I'm a public health nurse. I intentionally introduced myself that way because I would like to take a different route of approach. Like everyone has said, everyone in here has experienced mental health issues, whether it was clinically diagnosed or whether you just felt sad, didn't feel like doing anything. But as a health personnel, I want to talk about the part of the help, because the person who is feeling what they're feeling is aware of what they're feeling. But it is about the people around them who are supposed to be of help. Most people with mental health issues do not want to be labeled with their illness or their problem. It is actually the community and health workers that tend to label these people, hence hindering every other aspect of this person's life, their profession, what they've achieved, their families, their goals, their aspirations. It's just now you tag them as the person with depression or the person with anxiety disorders or the maniac person. So I don't know about other countries, but personally in my country, in Zambia, there is a huge gap. There is a huge gap on awareness about mental health. And it's so disappointing that this gap is perpetuated by health workers. There are many nurses, doctors, a lot of people who are working in the hospitals and clinics who will literally ignore someone with a mental health issue just because they're not physically unwell. Like someone will come in and what's the problem, or you have a fever, they'll give them maybe Panadol for the fever, but this person is crying. And it's so saddening when you see a person, a grown woman, a grown man, cry, and this nurse will shout at him, why are you crying over a headache? But as a health professional, I should be able to know that this person's headache could be caused by stress, and this stress could be caused by, maybe this person hasn't been sleeping, maybe this person has got an anxiety disorder. And so I feel like we are part of the problem in hindering people from getting help, especially young people. It's very hard for young people to come to clinics and just express what's going on in their lives, especially because, like Genevieve mentioned, the mental health issues have triggers. So the aim is for you who has a friend, you as a friend. This is not just about health professionals. It's you as a friend, you as a relative, you as a figure in the community, you as even just a stranger, to be able to just lend that helping hand to someone. To be quite honest, you don't know where the help will come from, and you don't know the impact you make in someone's life. I'll give a very practical example right now. I came in a bit late. I was trying to catch up. I was feeling a little anxious, what am I going to say? What am I going to contribute to the conversation? And then Pearl started speaking, yeah? And she's got this bright smile. And for some weird reason, it relaxed me. Like, I can't explain it. But after Pearl smiled and started sharing about her things, it relaxed me. And that's just a practical example of how something that might be small, I'm sure Pearl didn't realize or doesn't even know that what she had done had affected me in any way. But for me, the calm and the peace that it gave me is very significant. So I guess the point that I'm trying to put across is, in as much as we are going through things, as individuals, it's also our responsibility to be, how can I put it? I guess I'd say a brother's keeper or a sister's keeper, to look to your sides and just be able to say, how can I make the world a better place? How am I going to help this individual? How am I going to lend a helping hand? And I feel like the first step to this is just listening. A lot of us are just quick to judge, quick to dismiss. Even when you're just talking to your friend and you notice something that's off about them, bring it up. Maybe they need that opportunity. Maybe they need someone to talk to. In terms of mental health awareness in the community, I feel like most people talk about awareness, but are not too sure what it is. Actually, most people preach awareness, but do not know what that awareness means and how to go about it. Awareness could be a campaign, yes. Awareness could be sharing your story. Awareness could be just kindness to another person. Awareness could be just typing something and sharing it on social media platforms. I feel like there is more that needs to be shared and spread about mental health in our communities. Someone touched myths and misconceptions of mental health, especially in African households. Like, if you genuinely grew up in a typical African household, nobody talked about mental health. Nobody talked about feelings. Nobody talked about how a situation, something traumatic, like I remember robberies were so common. And something as traumatic as an armed robbery would happen at our place. Nobody, no, as long as they didn't touch anyone physically, nobody would ask, not even the parents would ask how everyone is doing, how this has affected them, and things like that. And that's just one example of how a lot of things would go on in Genevieve.
Yeah,
How a lot of
Genevieve, cool, yeah.
uh, how a lot of things would just go wrong and nobody spoke about them. But using that as an excuse is not good enough. I feel like as long as we are aware, we should be able to break that chain, because ignorance is not an excuse at this point. We just have to bring that awareness for everyone. And just to speak on something that most men and women do not want to acknowledge, is there is a certain level of imbalance when it comes to, already mental health is a taboo for everyone. But from my experience, it's even more of a taboo for men. Nobody is talking about how men feel, not even men themselves. And why is that? Because most men are raised from a young age. You hear even in the community, a small boy who's under 5 will hurt himself, and the mother will say, "Why are you crying like a little girl? Like you're not a boy. Boys don't cry." Or, "Don't do this because you're a boy. Why are you whining? Why are you complaining like you're not a boy? Nobody likes a man that complains," and things like this. And whilst these statements are said to young people and even older people, and people assume that they have no effect, these have long lasting effects, because I'm sure most of the men in Africa, around the world, even on this platform, can attest that expression for them is not a natural thing. It's something that they had to find strength and courage to do. For most women, expression is easy. For me, expression is easy. I'll just start pouring out my feelings and explaining how I feel. But for most men, it doesn't come easy. And if you look at the statistics, actually, more men commit suicide than women. And I think this is just a direct representation of what is going on. So, yeah, I think what I just wanted to talk about mainly was, whilst it's easy for one person to acknowledge the struggles that they've been through, I think that it's also time that we as individuals take responsibility for how we are affecting other people's mental health, how our comments on social media, our actions, how we're unkind to people, how we're inconsiderate is affecting your neighbor's mental health. Because me, I'm like, okay, I have anxiety. Don't scare me. If I'm in a position of pressure, I will break. I don't like that. but I will be seated and be like, oh my God, I have anxiety. The world should be more kind to me. And then directly cause anxiety to the person seated next to me. So in as much as I want kindness from the world, and in as much as I should get help for my mental health issues, I should be able to extend the same kindness to the people around me, to the people in my life, and just to general strangers, just greet a stranger in the road. You don't know what someone is going through. They might just be walking, going to do destructive things. Just greet them. Just find someone and tell them God loves them. Whether they respond, whether they look surprised, just tell them that and go on your way. You don't know what difference that will make in the person's life. So,
Wow.
just to conclude, get help for your mental issues. Be the help for another person's mental issues. So, yes, that's what I wanted to share.
Wow. That's from the legendary Annie Kapolyo. She said she liked the way I mentioned her surname. I'm sure I'm not mentioning it well, but yes.
It's okay, you've improved.
Yes, thank you, Annie. I know this is beautiful. Get help for your mental health and be the help for another. Usually when you smile to somebody, a stranger, sometimes the person will just turn back and see whether you're smiling to me or to someone else. And then later, if the person realizes you're smiling to him or her, and the person smiles back. I'm the kind of person who says hello to strangers. Like, you meet someone, you don't know the person. I'm that happy guy, Yeah, probably you can even sense it in the way I'm behaving here. So sometimes you feel that you're not making any kind of impact whatsoever, but you may never know, like Annie just shared. So let's be generous with our smiles and with our hellos and highs to people. At this moment, I would like to say that the floor is open. If you want to share anything, please feel free. Tawana, please go, and then Linda will come later after it, if that's okay with you. Tawanda. Yeah.
Hi, I was swallowing my food. Yes, thank you so much.
So what are you eating? What are you eating?
I'm eating shima with chicken and rep. Shima is the staple food in Zambia.
Okay. Is it made from maize or cassava?
Corn,
Or
maize.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like pap?
Yeah, it definitely is pap. It's why you eat it with your fingers and whatnot.
Nice. In Ghana, we'll call it banku or like fufu or something. Okay, go. Sorry, I took it to the food level, please.
Yes, thank you so much for everyone's contribution. It's highly appreciated. I've noticed that most things have been touched already. I just wanted to speak about the origins of mental health. So, mental health, like any other disease or condition, you can either acquire it, like through your journey in life, and other mental health issues are inherent and stuff like that. So, we need to realize that in life, we might think that we're okay, but then as time goes by, we might not realize it, that we have acquired some mental health issues along the way. And it's just important to do a what's that called? Introspection. Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah, so it's important to introspect and see ourselves, to just always be on the lookout for our mental issues. And sometimes we might be born with certain conditions like chronic depression. Those are things that we're born with and we can't run away from. So there's that also. And then also another thing that we haven't talked about but is very common for most of us, if not all of us, is the trauma that comes from where we come from, the trauma we have experienced as kids, childhood trauma and stuff like that, which cause mental health issues, especially with regard to like growing up in toxic homes and stuff like that. And sometimes we might not realize why we act the way we act or behave the way we behave. And then we will realize that it's something from back home, from it's the kid inside us yearning, crying out because that kid never dealt with the issues that that kid experienced. Then we've also heard of sayings like hurt people.
Hmm?
So we might be okay, but then with life's experiences and whatnot, we might rub shoulders with certain people who might hurt us, and then in turn not realize that we are projecting or taking out our frustrations on the people that we meet. And sometimes it might not be frustration, and most times we don't even notice this. But yeah, there's also that. And what else? Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. And
Thank you very much, Tawanda. I think you brought this issue about the childhood traumas and things from the old that can always surface in the, and of course, some of the mental conditions are genetic, like you're saying. They show up later in life. And so these are things I'm sure in other episodes we'll start dealing with the types of mental health conditions, and then we'll delve into those issues. Yeah. Okay, yeah, Esther. Let's have Esther, then Linda will come to you, please. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, Esther.
Okay. Yes, so I just wanted to comment on the submission that Tawanda made. That's a very good submission. But I wanted us to also understand that some mental illnesses, when we talk about mental illnesses, like how they come about, we usually talk about something we call the biopsychosocial model, in that we have the biological component, we have the psychological component, and then the social bit, right? So mental illness, somebody may have a genetic predisposition, like we have already mentioned, but then that person may not end up with a mental illness. And that would depend on, first, the psychological well-being that the person would have as they are growing up, the environment in which they find themselves, and then the social bit also comes in. So whether the person has a good social support system, whether the person is living in an environment that promotes good mental health. So some people may not have genetic predisposition, but they will end up with a mental illness. So we always need to remember that in as much as you may have a genetic predisposition or you don't have a genetic predisposition, your psychological well-being and then the society in which you find yourself contributes a lot to you ending up with a mental illness or not. That is why it's important to make sure we take good care of our own mental health. We try to support other people who live around us, our families, our friends, to make sure that even if the person has a genetic predisposition, they won't end up with a mental illness. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to bring up the biopsychosocial model. It's great. Thank you so much. Linda, yes.
It's been nice listening to everybody share. Thank you so much. I would like to talk about the shame that it comes with, especially if you're from a family where everybody seems so resilient. If they're going through their thing, they just seem to bounce off and they are fine. But you always seem to be the one that fall, and you can't seem to get up until you start to feel like I'm a bother to everybody. And you start to hide how you really feel because you don't want them to tell you, okay, what's going on with you? How may I support you? One more time. So there's this shame, and I can really identify with that. And because of that, I tend to be very empathetic when I see people struggling and they are showing that sign of shame, because I know I've been there. In my early 20s, in my 20s, I seem to have been so strong. I was like the strongest of the siblings. Then when I started falling apart in my early 30s, it was really hard coming to terms with the fact that I was no longer as resilient as I used to be. I was ashamed of the fact, but it was it is what it is. And now I have accepted it that, okay, I'm dealing with this. So far, I can always reach out whenever it happens. Then there are sometimes I can't reach out. On my birthday this year, April 18th, I had always thought I was a very smart person, but I fell for a scam. And I had just left my job and I felt, I had something by the side, a business to sustain me until I get something else while I take some professional courses. And on my birthday, she was arrested and everything. I realized my life savings was gone. And I was trying to be strong until one day I opened my eyes on my bed and I could not get out of bed. I was there for 3 days. My brother knew something was up again. He kept opening the door. Are you okay? I am not okay. What can I do to help? I said, I don't know. But I knew I was falling apart. I couldn't do anything about it until one day, the fourth day, I I saw myself, I stood up, I took a blade and I slit my wrist and I died. And I imagined my brother coming home to meet that mess. And I picked my phone and I called my sister. I said, I'm not okay. I'm having these suicidal ideations and I'm losing my shit. I knew if I could tell someone, then I wasn't going to go through with it at that point. But that's the farthest point I've ever gone. This is real. This is real. My sister also lost money, but why was I so hit? Why couldn't I just bounce off and just come off? And it was just what it was. I couldn't do that until I somehow found the strength again. And I'm here talking about it and I'm laughing, and the pain, that pain I was feeling, it's gone. So hearing the ladies share tonight, and these things are real, and being able to talk about it, having a safe space to share and talk about mental health struggles and the different forms, those that are genetic, those that happen to you because life just happened. Like, just being able to talk about it gives those listening some kind of strength, and for you to be able to also talk about it just helps you feel better about the situation. And I hope our society becomes more accommodating. Just barely 2 weeks back, we lost a young man again, and he was talking about, and I saw his I found myself on the social media pages, and the signs were there. For the last 6 months, he was consistently posting the darkest stuff. If he was a friend, I would have known this person is in trouble. So more people need to be able to tell when a post is consistently off, to be able to reach out. There was also another incident of a lady that posted on Facebook that the younger brother was in church on a Sunday, and the pastor asked everybody that was having suicidal ideations to come out, and he came out, and the pastor prayed for them, and he went back. 2 days later, they found him hanging on the ceiling. Now, where is the place of spiritual help? Where does it end? And actually asking for professional help. That's another struggle also we are dealing with. And that post was met with a lot of, it's only a selfish person that will kill themselves. And I was there and I was being empathetic towards the dead, because I know nobody wants to die. You're just tired of the pain. And unfortunately, it ends by dying. So that seems to be the only way out at that point. But ordinarily, nobody just wants to choose death. Like, I want to die. Nobody wants to die. But when the pain becomes unbearable, when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you just want to pull the plug, and that is it. So I'm glad we're talking about this, and I'm looking forward to the conversations that will come in a few weeks' time and months' time. And I hope we can get more audience to actually listen to these things, because here I am talking about mine in Nigeria, and hearing talk about what's happening to you in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, in South Africa, and the other countries, and it hits home like, whoa, this is worldwide. It's not only peculiar to my environment, and it gives me this sense of, I won't say validation, but it makes me feel like, okay, I have people out there who understand what this is, and we're all talking about it. Hopefully more people will come to talk about it. Then we'll talk about support, how to get support, how to know the signs when somebody is drowning. It's not every time we can actually ask for help. Sometimes we are ashamed of asking for help. So when people who are around us can tell, even if they are not asking for help, this person seems to be struggling, so that they can reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. Linda.
My second name is Esther, so it's fine.
Oh, nice.
Linda, Esther. Wow, I mean, it's deep stuff you shared. And I like the question you asked, asking for professional help. When does seeking spiritual help end for professional help to start? And that's actually a big question, because in our part of the world, you only find, I've actually invited some of my colleagues who studied clinical psychology. They'll be joining our next conversation. And because as a social psychologist, we do our bit, but you see, the clinical psychologists are those who work in the hospitals, and then they deal with most of those who come to the hospital. And they will tell you that most of those who come there are close to, those that have evidently, there's an evident manifestation of mental illness. And that's usually that's the extent to which sometimes it gets to before people actually go to see their psychologist. In our part of the world, you find out if people are thinking about what to eat, and who is going to take money to visit the psychologist? So it looks like the pastors and the prophets become the easy call, because you don't pay to see the, okay, some of the churches you pay to see the prophets, but but most churches you may not pay to see the pastor in order to see the pastor, for the pastor to pray for. And I think it's also one of the things that I feel that most pastors must be trained in psychology, because the pastors are playing a role that in our culture, ministers and even imams, in the Islam they go to the imams, and in the Christianity they'll go to the pastors. We are playing a role that goes beyond just the spiritual. Like aside praying for people, we may need to actually counsel and sit with them and talk through the issues, just like the psychologist would do.
I believe even after praying for him, and he didn't get the time to counsel him, he just prayed for him. He could have also reached out to the family and notified them. That way they put him on suicide watch. Like the family will watch out for him. I don't think that would have happened if they had noticed on time and just kept an eye on him.
Yeah.
So really.
So I mean, I think our further conversations will bring in the spiritual dimension and these cultural dynamics that are coming up. I would like to read something from Esther in the chat. Esther says that unfortunately, people usually assume that people who talk about what they are going through are doing it for attention. Our society is such that we are forced to keep your thoughts. You are forced to keep your thoughts to ourselves. Like we are forced to keep our thoughts to ourselves. Not me though. I speak out when I'm overwhelmed, irrespective of what others think about me. And I think that's what we need to do, all of us. Okay, so let's see. I think the ladies have spoken overwhelmingly. Let's have Adetola, the champion of the men. Come on, let's receive Adetola. Adetola, come on, man.
Sorry, I'm in traffic, so
okay, it's good to have you.
Thank you. I've heard all the women. I mean, they've said a lot of fantastic things. I just want to jump in on Linda's final statement about shame. You see, as a man, first of all, shame is like a middle name because you're not allowed to express emotions. And usually, when you express emotions, everybody's shocked because they're like, "What? You have emotions? Oh my God! How did that happen? I thought we successfully killed your emotions. You mean you actually can feel? Unbelievable." So the thing is this, like, for me, and I heard Linda talking about the family putting the children on suicide watch. Well, I'm Nigerian, she's Nigerian. I mean, it's one of the most difficult things that Nigerian parents, my parents' generation face. They don't know how to deal with expression of emotions. Telling my mother that I was suicidal freaked her out. She didn't understand what was happening. Because she was like, "What? Why are you suicidal?" And she thought, okay, your father's family have started attacking you, all kinds of weird stuff. But I was going through a lot. And you see, the thing is, as a man, you are trained to be strong. You are trained to be resilient. You are trained to hold and to be strong and to be macho. But what about when the person who's supposed to be the foundation is breaking inside and everybody resting on your shoulders? You're lifting literally the weight of all of these people, yeah? But you by yourself, you are dying out. And yeah, everybody's praising you for being such a man. No, the thing is I think that men need to speak out and say, look, you know what? I don't want to be your support. Let everybody support each other. I'm going through a lot as I am. So I can't provide you the support you need now until I can support myself sufficiently. And then if I have enough, I can share some with you. Because men cannot continue to be the bulwark of society when they've not been the bulwark of themselves. You can't continue to support the system, the society. Meanwhile, you yourself are floundering. I'll tell you something since we're sharing. I got married and the marriage failed, right? And, first of all, I was so disappointed because I was like, oh my God, everyone's getting married and their marriages are succeeding. I mean, like, you got married and your marriage failed. Oh my God. And so, first of all, I was self-critical because I was so ashamed of myself. Like, you could even make a marriage work. Oh my God. And you know, then after that, I had to go through separation, to my son, to the woman for a while. I mean, I got it back, so that's good. But I mean, he having birthdays without me. And you know, people don't think that when, I mean, this is something I say, like, when women take away children from fathers, they don't think that the fathers are going to steal anything else. They're my children now. I can't leave them with him, or blah blah blah. It doesn't really matter if he doesn't have access or not. But in that moment, I was feeling like I was a dead person. I was there, I was alive. My son was having birthdays without me. Like, and I was seeing pictures of his birthdays, and I was like, am I really here? And you know, then after that separation, things went really downhill financially and work-wise. So I was at the point where I sat down in my room then, and I looked at myself and I was like, oh, your life is not going anywhere. You know, everything you worked on, the degrees, everything was a total sham. And you are a disgrace to society. I mean, like, really, you should not be here. I mean, like, society would be better off without you. And, you know, all of this self-bashing was so much because, like, you know, self-criticism is so hard because it's not like people criticize you. When people criticize you, can tell them to shut up. But when you criticize yourself, there's no bailout. You're right there in the presence of yourself. It is harsh, it is rough, it is brutal. And you're actually there thinking, okay, can you make it stop? So it's not stopping. And the thing is, in that moment, while you are breaking to pieces and still bashing yourself, people are expecting you to be strong. No, 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 no. People need to give men the license to say, you know what, at this moment, I am weak and I'm not having any more strength show. So if you need strength, go find your strength somewhere else. I'm taking care of myself now. And that fits into the line of what Pearl was saying, where you have to take care of yourself first, and then every other person can come afterward. So it's okay to be selfish in that moment and say, you know what, me for now. And you know, when in those moments when I was really down, no one came to see me. I mean, like, my family probably refused to come and see me, my siblings. My mother came eventually to see me, and all she said was about being so sad about how I was living. And I was like, look, you're not even giving me succor. You're only telling me that I'm a disappointment to you. So please leave me alone. Your feedback is not helping. If you think I'm a disappointment to you, I'm more of a disappointment to myself. So I don't need your disappointment. Keep your disappointment to yourself. I have enough disappointment to share around. So whatever disappointment you feel, take it away from me. And she couldn't get how angry and aggressive I was, because I was like, how dare you bring extra to what I'm already feeling? I don't need this. Take it away. And you know, but with time, as things started getting better, I told myself, look, all of this was because you have to go through this to understand the value of having a son. You have to go through all of this to understand the value of being yourself, of prioritizing yourself, of looking after yourself. You have to go through this to discover your own identity, to realize that you are a man in this society, and to know what it means, and to know how to stand up for yourself and say, in the midst of whatever society is saying, I am a man, I'm not going to allow your labels, I'm not going to allow your expectations to kill me or to drown me. I'm going to live to the best of myself. And you see, as I started living like this, I'm not letting anyone peg me to expectations, to standards that I could not meet. I was liberated because now I was living based on what I knew I could do, what was okay for me. So I wasn't pegged by any societal standards, any societal expectations, any parental standards. I did me. And you know, I also spoke out in the face of expectations that people had of me that I knew I couldn't do. I was like, look, when my mom would say, oh, I expect you to do this, I expect you to do that, I was like, no, that is your expectation. I'm not able to account for your expectation or meet your expectation. So in case I disappoint you because I do not meet your expectation, that's fine. But the only expectation that is top priority to me, paramount to me, is my expectation. Do I meet my expectation? Yes. Okay, that's fine. And you see, by that, you become free. You liberate yourself because people expect too much. People put too much responsibility on you, which you cannot literally meet. It's impossible. So you have to put yourself to the peg of what you can do. And it's okay if you do not meet your expectations from time to time. But because they are yours, it's easy to forgive yourself. But when you fail, for example, if my father is looking at me and saying, oh, when I came back and I was struggling, it was like, oh, the money I paid to fund your overseas education, if I knew that you were not going to turn out well, I would have spent it on myself. All of these things, verbal abuse, strong. I mean, and for someone like me that feels things deeply, these statements, they say them 5-10 years ago, but it stays with me. So it stays with me. So I tell them right there and then, don't say this to me. I don't wait for 4 or 5 years time to silence negative feedback. I shut it down from the beginning. No, you're not bringing this to me. You keep your mouth, you keep whatever you're saying away from me. Every negativity I take away. So by accepting myself, by setting standards that I can possibly meet, by surrounding myself with positivity and telling myself that even if I did not meet all of my expectations, I was still good enough, I became free. And my bird literally flew.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Adetola, for sharing. And I think what you've also shared some things that are really deep. You spoke about the labels and the expectations. And I mean, there are a lot of expectations in our part of the world. Parents are projecting, family members are projecting things that they expect from you. Right when you're coming out of school, tertiary education, there's expectation for you to move out of the home, start living your life. I mean, Pearl spoke about the expectation of marriage. I mean, these are really weighty stuff that is on the shoulders of the youth. And it's not as if these things, and even to think of recently, I was speaking to someone who was going to get married, and parents were dictating who to like, no, we don't like this guy, we don't like this girl, all this kind of controlling stuff. It's as though the parents are the ones going to marry the person. So these are all weights that in a way become stresses, these expectations. Yeah, Petro, before you come in, I would like to read what Linda shared in the chat. Linda says, I tell my grieving male friends to cry if they feel like it. The loss of a mother or father is enormous, and it's okay to cry. They always look at me like, then they say thank you and admit that all they have heard since it happened is that men don't cry. Are you kidding me? Grief is a strong emotion. If crying helps to let out the pain, why should some gender stereotypes stop you? And then she says, it's so sad. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Petro, we'll hear you and then we'll open the floor for those who haven't spoken, or if someone else wants to share a closing comment or something, and then we'll come back to our panelists, those that are left here. We'll close. Oh, Petro, your network. I don't know if it's your audio or the network. It's not strong. Before I go back to Esther, Jumahin, is there anything you'd like to share?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Please.
From Nigeria.
Nigeria. Okay.
Yes, I'm Kwara branch.
Okay. Thank you. So you can go ahead and share.
I have an experience on mental health. Okay, sir. I have an experience on mental health because something like the loss of husband happened then. So during my widow period, I used to be alone. And the thing with me, I used to feel depressed. So that depression leads me, but sometimes when I sit down and someone calls me, I will not know that I'm the one they are calling. I will be carried away in thinking. So, and when they discovered what is happening to me, now into that maybe I should be watching a movie. I now started watching a movie. So I used to watch movie then. That movie, I now adamant to the movie to the extent that I can watch movie the whole day, that I will not feel hungry at all. I will not be able to eat or do anything except watching the movie. I now see that watching of my movie is much. I now seek for another way to take away my thinking so that it's not being on moving alone. I was able to do something meaningful in life. So I started praying. There is one of my boss in our branch. We call him Mr. Ibrahim. He's our psychological coordinator. He said I've been listening to the music that has to do with the regional one. So I used to listen to it, listen to Quran and so on. But I still notice in myself that whenever someone picks me up, it feels as if the heavens should come down. You don't understand me. On my head with the all things. The only thing that I used to do to suppress is that I have to be alone. Nobody should talk to me. When they talk or beg me that I should come down, this thing is starts increasing. And now think, what else can I still do for this to come down? I started praying. From praying, when I see myself that I'm about to hungry or someone is about to pick me up, I will take a cold water out, chill water, not that much cold. I will just take it. When I drink that chill water, it will run all over my body and I will feel a little bit calm. I will be okay. Now, I, since then, no, I cannot be alone. When I be alone for like 2 to 3 hours, I will start sleeping. Except when I'm watching a movie or I go out and be with people. So if I've been alone inside, doing nothing or doing the house chore, I will still be depressed by doing the house chore until I watch a movie or go out with the people. So start communicating with people outside, start chatting like jokes, and so on. For else, I'll be depressed. And it is that depression that leads to my mental disable. So I'm trying myself to calm it down. If I see any other way that I can get tonight to add to the one I'm using, I'll be glad. Because any small thing, I will start shouting. Even on my children at home, I will start shouting on them, beating them, a little thing. Even within my husband and I, when they have a little discussion like this, I'll just be pissed off and start shouting, screaming. If I don't want to fight or want anybody to know what is happening, I have to go and find a place in a separate room to be with myself alone and start scrolling my phone, chatting on WhatsApp or Instagram or checking everything to take myself away from where I am. So I declare tonight that I can get another way apart from all these the one I've mentioned, which are watching a movie, praying, going outside, chatting with people, or being alone and when chatting with my phone. So if there is any other way, I will be glad to get that to
Please.
stop or reduce my depression. Instead of mentally something with my brain that I have to pick up, I have to be glad as well. So that I can know what to do. So that I will not be angry all the time. Because when I'm settled, I used to feel that, oh, what is this that I'm angry about? The thing is too small. It's not to put something I can say out. That this is what is caused my angry or that pissed me off. You see, well, please, I'll be glad if you can. So I try to be organizer of this program. I'm very grateful to be part of this. Thanks to Mr. Ibrahim, I said my psychological coordinator for Quarcoo Band. That reminds me because I forgot. Thanks so much, sir. We are blessed always. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay, I mean, I think in your submission, she was asking if there are any other options that she
Yes.
could.
Yes.
Yes. So I think that from everything that I got from what she was saying, I think, let me get her name right, Jumahin. I think that you've actually gone through the stages so much so that where you are now is not something that I would encourage that you should use just societal support or maybe spiritual support for. I think that it is time you actually see a professional, because from everything that you've described, you have actually reached a point where I think you need to see a professional. I don't know how the system works in Nigeria, but in Ghana, for instance, we have like psychiatric hospitals. So you need to find a psychiatric hospital close to you if there is one. And then unfortunately, some hospitals, I don't know again how it is in Nigeria, but some of the big hospitals, maybe if you have like regional hospitals, or I think Nigeria, you have states. So if you have like state hospitals, most of the big hospitals will have like psychiatric units in those hospitals. So you need to go to one of those facilities and then see either a psychologist or psychiatrist. They will take a history, everything that you've described to us so far, and then whatever intervention that they think that is best for you, they can do that.
Okay. So I'm in Nigeria, and I belong to a network, Sunshine Series. We have a virtual. She will have access to virtual counseling, to speak to a psychologist, and to be for free. And if they've spoken for a while and they feel she needs clinical support, then they can refer her to a place that is close to her location. So if I can get her number from here, so I can send her the number to call. I got it.
01.
All right, I will send you a text message shortly.
Okay. Thank you very much, Linda,
All right,
Esther,
Fatima.
and Jumahin. Thank you so much, everyone. I would just like to hear some few minutes closing remarks from, let's start with Annie, and then we'll come back to Esther, and then I'll give my closing remarks, and then we'll be out of here. Annie was supposed to host this or to chair this session, but because of traffic, she was not able to. But I'm sure she's going to be chairing the next one, and I'm going to be a glad participant.
Hi,
Thank you.
Annie. I love
you.
your chair.
Yes, she's really shining. She says it's cold.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for jumping in last minute when I couldn't make it. I appreciate it. Okay, so I think just the last remarks towards the end of the discussion, there has been a lot of mention about help and why you can get the help and why you can seek the help. I just wanted to point out one thing, that no matter how effective the help is or the helper is, it is the perception of the person being helped. So, for example, no matter how effective the preacher is, no matter how effective the psychosocial counselor is, no matter how effective the therapist is, if say in my perception I feel I would get better help from another person, then no matter how hard they work, it won't do anything for me. So I feel like just something to add is, if first of all, it should be someone that you feel comfortable with. Secondly, if you are a religious person, visit your pastor, because that's where you're going to find the best help. If you feel that you find the best help from talking to a friend, then talk to a friend, because you could even talk to a professional. But if you already in your perception feel like there's nothing that I'm going to get from a therapist, unless of course it reaches a certain stage, because like we discussed earlier, there are levels to the mental illness. But I'm talking basically, if you need someone to talk to, let it be someone that you trust and someone that you feel very comfortable with. You should not conform to what society dictates is the person that you should talk to. Some people write songs, some people write poetry, some people write it down in their diary, and that would be more effective for them than even seeing a counselor. However, at some point, it is important for everyone to see a counselor, go to a mental health institution. When it comes to, actually, the mental health department is the only department in the hospital where you can do a self-admission. You can literally walk into a mental health institution and say, I do not feel fine. I need to be monitored and I want to be admitted. Please give me a bed, give me a room, and things like that. That also just speaks to awareness, because most of the people don't know that. They think the only people that go to mental health institutions are people who are mad and undressing and shouting in the road. But if you're feeling suicidal, if you're feeling alone and things like that, you can literally just go to your nearest hospital and say, please admit me. I want to be here. Please evaluate me. So yes, I just wanted to contribute. Thank you everyone for being here. It's such a great conversation, and I know it will unravel even more going forward, but this was a very amazing and encouraging first session. So thank you everyone. I learned so much from everyone, and hopefully my contribution did enlighten one or two people in one or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was a wonderful wrap. Yes. Who is here? Any other? Esther, right? Yes. Esther, closing remarks. And then Pearl, if you want to share some final words, cool. And then we'll leave.
Okay, so what I would say is that we all need to appreciate that. I mean, from everything we've heard, we would appreciate that mental illnesses are way common than we want to appreciate. We choose to appreciate. So many people are going through stuff, and if you have an open mind, you would begin to realize that actually a number of people around you may be experiencing mental health challenges that you have no idea about. And we need to learn not to trivialize people's challenges and their experiences. Sometimes we feel like, oh,
sorry, Esther, we lost you.
So we need to learn to appreciate people's experiences and not trivialize anybody's experience whatsoever. And then again, I also want us to all remember that if it is normal for somebody to have a physical illness like diabetes or hypertension, it should be normal for somebody to have a mental illness. There is no need for us to stigmatize anybody just because they have a mental illness, because mental illnesses are illnesses. Most of the time, people want to associate them with curses and spirits. We are not going to, argue about that today, but we need to remember that if diabetes and hypertension is an illness, every mental illness is also an illness. That is my closing remark. I hope that we've all learned something today, and then we would all make a difference in our circles of influence, just like I said in the beginning. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. And it's been a great first interaction with you. It's been awesome. I will say that I think it's been a wonderful, okay, Adetola, brief comment, and then we are out of here.
Yeah, sorry. I can't share my video because I'm in a very rowdy place. Yeah.
Okay.
But the key thing is this. I'll just say this for men. It's okay to know when you're at your breaking point. You don't have to be permanently strong. It's okay to say, I'm not strong. I cannot share my strength with you. My strength is not enough to share around. So, no, thank you. It's okay to say no. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to go away. It's okay to shut down and take care of yourself. It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adetola. Yeah, it's okay to say no sometimes. Yeah, it is. It is. Thank you so much. And I mean, on my part, I'll say I think all that we've had today has been phenomenal, and it's been very insightful. And I hope that we've all learned something. I've learned a lot, and I believe that by the end of this session, I'm going to be loaded once again to be able to also impact my circles of friends and networks. So thank you very much, everyone. This was episode 1 of our conversation. Subsequent episodes will be zooming into specific subjects and trying to delve deeper into the subject of mental health. And so without much ado, I'd like to say thank you so much. God bless you, and bye-bye. In the chat to join Voice One Africa. Bye. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.